The first dance club I attended was by accident. It was Sides DC, and what a famous club. It was my leaving cert results session with the lads, and we rolled into town, and I was, I think, 16, just before my 17th birthday, and we managed to get into Sides. I didn't know what Sides was, and I met the legend of Billy Scurry and the legend of Liam Dollard, and my mind was totally warped from there on. So you can blame those two clowns for everything that happened after that. Liam was that good that night that, like, I was hounding him, what was the name of tunes, what was the name of these tunes, and he gave me a tape. He wouldn't tell me nothing, but he said, there's a tape, fuck off. And that tape changed my life. That was 1990, and that tape changed my life. I was buying tunes. I was a record buyer, so like in my teens, like I was into buying records, but like I wasn't exposed to dance music obviously at 15, 16. So I used to go into the mega store and buy chart stuff, and I was into DJing. I was into radio DJing, and I'd done courses in radio as a 16-year-old or 15, 16-year-old, and I wanted to get into that kind of line. I was doing mobile gigs without a car, obviously, but I was doing that kind of work, and then that changed my life, and that changed my direction into being, well, there's actually more to this. I did have a set of decks. I picked up a set of decks around 15 through a cousin of mine who worked in Avondale in Bray, the studios, and I had a set of realistic direct drive decks, but they weren't Technics, but I was able to eventually get my shit together there with them. In the early days, as I said, I stumbled into Sides. I probably didn't know what to expect because it was new to me. I was working as a barman in a pub in Finglas, and we used to head out, and we used to go into places like Appalani's and you know, the apartments and clubs like that, and I met Aidan Kelly, and then Aidan or somebody said to me, you need to go to the Olympic Ballroom, and we went, and we were just drinkers back in the day, you know, we were 17 years old, and we ended up going to the Olympic Ballroom and yourself DJing, and that was my first experience of a rave. I never saw anything like that, and again, even though I had seen what Sides was, which was a cool little club, when you go to a rave and you see people with their tops off and they're hugging and kissing and shaking your hand, I mean, it's a life-changing event, and it was at that time, it was the summer of love or soon after. That changed my life the first time I went to the Olympic Ballroom, and that was it. That was my moment in time. I was a DJ per se. I was a mobile DJ, so I came from the mobile world, and I actually done a party for your crew in the Star newspaper. I remember doing a Christmas party for you guys many moons ago. I knew someone who knew someone. But you know, I was kind of focusing my career. I remember telling my careers guidance teacher I wanted to be DJ, and his immediate answer was like Larry Gogan, and I said, well, no, I can be better than that. There's new things starting. You know, I was aware things were going on. I was just too young to get into the clubs, but I wanted to be DJ all my life. I wanted to be DJ since I was a kid. So I don't know where that came from, but there was a music love that came from music. Well, I had a set of realistic decks. I bought myself a Sotronic or a Sound Lab dodgy mixer from Pete's, and I had this set of decks that I got around 15. They were difficult to mix on. They had a little dial on the front to change the tempo, but you know, I had no one to show me anything. My first Technics I got off a red hot guy, and I had one Technics for a while, so I used one Technics just to familiarise myself with the feel. So from about 16, 17 I had one Technics, and when I eventually started to make a few quid, I bought a second Technics. Actually, I bought a new set of Technics and sold the dodgy one. That's exactly what I did. But I was DJing since 16. That's kind of the crux, and I changed it. Like as I said, Sides and the Olympic changed my life at that age. Dance record. I was 15 years of age, or close to 16, and I was brought to the Palace nightclub in Blackpool by my friend's older sister boyfriend and her boyfriend, and I heard Voodoo Ray. And I never heard anything like this before, and I came back and I said, where would I get a tune like that? And they told me to go to Abbey Discs, and I went in and spoke to Billy, and I didn't know the name of this tune, and I started trying to sing the tune to him, and he just laughed at me. And he goes, I don't know what you're looking for, but I'll have it for you Thursday. Voodoo Ray opened my ears to a whole different sound, and you know, for me who was buying pop and chart music, up to that point I changed, and I started discovering house music. I discovered cowboy records through friends of mine who had decks, and they were listening to Limbo and Cowboy and all this American house music and Scottish through the Limbo side, and that changed my life, those two labels, and Gorilla as well. I did a couple of school socials, but they were kind of nondescript. I got taken on by sending out tapes, and I sent a tape to Club FM, and I got taken on a Friday night slot, and within a couple of weeks Pat O'Keefe, the infamous, offered me a gig in the Harp with Dilly and Pressure and a few of those kind of guys that I was in awe of.
Oh, really?
So that was my first gig. I got to warm up for those guys in the harp. But the first club I played was actually the George. As a residency, the George offered me a gig. I played it for about 3 weeks only, and then the Shaft, owner of the Shaft, said, "Listen, do you want to come play the Shaft?" I'd never heard of the place, and that changed my life because it was such an intense, obviously long. It's 3 or 4 boxes of records, kind of 6 or 7 hours of vinyl. But as far as I'm concerned, that was my apprenticeship as a DJ. I honed my skills there. Shaft or Pod opened soon after. I got taken on in Pod, but I was given the Mickey Mouse nights for a long time, as you are. But I mean, I was young. I was looking up to the likes of Paddy. System opened, and System offered me my own headline night on a Friday night. So again, that opened a lot of doors, and I started to work outside of Dublin at that point. And I was still only 20 years of age. Shaft as a DJ was probably my favourite because it's 6-7 hours to go from a place, and it wasn't just A to B, it was A to B to D to F to Z, and you could bring an entire audience on a journey with you, and it's sink or swim. It was an amazing place, and I wouldn't repeat records, so you had to kind of plan your sets very carefully. I met Barry Dempsey, and Barry was the light jock in Pod, and I was taken on in Pod, and we started very clicked straight away, and Barry was a keyboard player. And I remember going back to Barry's house in the Liberties, and he started playing IBO for me on the dodgy Casio that he had, and we started gelling. And this was around the kind of 97, 98 period. We decided, well, we can do this, and we decided to start making tunes. So 1988, I think it was around September, October, we were offered a night in Minute RTC, and 2,500 people turned up to this night. We had no title for the night until the week of the event, and Darren Nolan, who was working with myself and Barry Dempsey, said, "Let's call it Funkdope," just the name that he pulled out of his head. We called it Funkdope. It was a massive success. On the back of this, we were offered a college tour around the country, and we were offered a couple of residencies with the likes of UCD, Trinity, anywhere that had kind of their own little bars or student areas gave us a shot, and we started the night. And on the back of that, then Switch, which was I think it was called Club Zazu at the time, said, "Do you want to do a Thursday night student night as Funked Up?" And we took it on, and it got busy, and we took it on as a Saturday night then, and we ran it for 4 years. It was one of the most successful club nights ever in Dublin, and what started as a house, kind of progressive house night, turned very sharply towards tech house and techno, but it evolved that way, not through choice, through the audience and through our musical taste. It evolved from one style through to the other, and it was a very eclectic but very fun night. Funked Up then as a production group, we used to use Ken McHugh and Area 51, which was in Pulse Recording Studios, because we were paying these guys a lot of money to go in and record an A side and then just go back in and do a B side. Yeah. And we took on a couple of other guys like Ron's Mobile Disco, and a couple of other guys that we wanted to release. We started our own label in 1999. It was a vinyl label called Impulsive Music, and like yourselves with Red, we were kind of one of the first people actually took it on board to release our own music on vinyl and push it out there. It's a lesson learned in finance, it's a lesson learned in business and marketing, but we managed to release 8 singles globally, which got us on worldwide headlines, got us a couple of American tours, a couple of Middle East tours, and plenty of European festivals and stuff for a couple of years. It was great. And the problem was, back then you had a break-even point, so you had to get the 1,000 test pressings sold before they'd even think of pressing anymore. And even then you'd have a 600 or something, 750 mark to hit before the costs are covered. But there was better royalties because vinyl would sell for a little bit more, obviously, than digital downloads. And I actually spotted our original. We done an original EP, the Funked Up EP Part 1 and 2, and it's up on Discogs there for a few quid, which I was delighted to see the other day. Someone spotted it out to me. Yeah, but there is no money. There was never any money in it. It's about what it gets for you and where it puts you. It's constantly been my number one dance tune, and not because it's a great tune. I mean, it's not the best dance tune ever out there, but it was a moment in time, and for me, it was on that Liam Dollar tape that I got in 1990. It's not a hard tune to get hold of, but I've since learned a lot about that tune. I know Darren Emerson really well, who was integrally involved in making that tune and remixing it. But what it meant for me was, obviously I loved it on that Dollar tape, but what I did was I bought 2 copies on Flying, and I had 2 copies at home, and it was the tune that I learned to mix on, because I'd no one to show me, and what little I could gather was I was trying to mix the same record with the same record, so I wasn't getting thrown by different sounds, and it was that tune I used. So for me, it's probably took me 2 years to master it, but that's why it's so special to me. And even to this day, if it's dropped at the right time, it's special. It sums up house music. I haven't picked a set yet. I'm going to try and do something a little bit different from other events I've done, so people will be expecting a Shafty pod kind of set. I'm going to mix and match based on what I hear as well, so I'm going to play vinyl only, and hopefully play something that will raise a couple of smiles. That's my plan for next week.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Dean Sherry.
That was good.